Good day, Mom. I am Raycena Moncada from BS Ed Math 2A. I am here to present my favorite artist, which is William Morris. William Morris is seen as the grandfather of the international arts and crafts movement. In an era of increasing industrialism and urbanization, he embraced an idealized vision of the artisanship and cottage industries of the Middle Ages. Bibliography of William Morris. William Morris was born in 1834 in Walthamstow, Essex, the third of nine children. William's father, whom he was named, was a self-made businessman who was able to provide an upper middle class lifestyle for his family because of a shrewd investment in a Devonshire mine. Although William Morris Sr. died when his son was just 13, the wealth he had accumulated provided a generous income for the artist well into his adult life. Morris lived an idyllic lifestyle in his family's large country house near Epping Forest in Essex, surrounded with ancient woodlands scattered with medieval architecture. In 1853, Morris began his studies in theology at Exeter College, Oxford, planning to become a priest in line with his mother's wishes. However, in less than a year, his outlook on life shifted dramatically. His library reading shifted from religious matters to history and ecclesiastical architecture and eventually to John Ruskin's art criticism. Soon after, he discovered his lifelong passion for writing poetry, and his faith as a creative was sealed when he met fellow student Edward Burne-Jones, a budding artist and designer with whom he would remain friends for the rest of his life. In 1857, Morris, Rossetti, and Burne-Jones returned to Oxford to paint murals on the walls of the Union Library. The same year, Morris met Jane Burden, a beautiful working-class girl who began to model for his and Rossetti's paintings. Morris fell in love with her, and by 1859, they were married. They are blessed with two daughters, Jenny and May, were born in 1861 and 1862, and altogether the 5 years spent at Red House were the happiest life of Morris. Morris spent the final years of his life in his new house in West London, affectionately referred to as Kelmscott House, in honor of his earlier country residence. In 1891, he launched the last of his many creative ventures, Kelmscott Press. From that point onwards until his death in 1896, he divided his time between Kelmscott Press, his design work, and his socialist activism. The famous artworks of William Morris. La Belle Isotte. This painting has been listed since its creation as unfinished. It is the only easel painting by Morris to reach this level of near completion and a quintessential work of pre-Raphaelite era portraiture. The model for this painting was Jane Burden, Morris' soon-to-be wife, and it is believed that he started work on it very early during their courtship. The artist reportedly struggled during the composition process with the proportions of the human body, which he was never able to execute as effectively as his peers. It is rumored that when he stopped working on the painting, he scribbled a note on the back to Jane: "I cannot paint you, but I love you." Red House has been seen as the ancestral home of the arts and crafts movement in Britain. Its construction also marked a decisive shift in architectural aesthetics, one whose effects were still playing out in the early 20th century. In 1904, the German critic Hermann Muthesius described Red House as the first house to be conceived and built as a unified whole inside and out, the very first example in the history of the modern home. This concept would be hugely influential on architects of the Art Nouveau era such as Charles Rennie, Mackintosh, and modernists such as Walter Gropius. The Kelmscott Chaucer, as it is widely known, is one of the defining achievements of the last great artistic project of the Morris life, the Kelmscott Press. For over 2 decades, Morris had enjoyed translating and illustrating medieval narratives, and he had gifted several handmade manuscripts to family and friends. In 1891, he decided to set up a business that would produce beautiful hand-printed books, spending months sourcing the correct handmade paper, woodblock carvers, and typefaces for the Kelmscott priests to use. In the case of the Kelmscott Chaucer, the medieval style typeface originally chosen did not create the desired visual effect and saw an entirely new typeface. Chaucer was created solely for the project. Why I like the artist. I admire William Morris because his legacy is both vast and difficult to trace. His artistic and poetic ability, as well as the radical new ethos he espoused on art and society, sent shockwaves through the worlds of art, architecture, design, poetry, and political thought. His most visible influence was on the arts and crafts movement, of which he is widely regarded as a founding father. Several of his friends and acquaintances took up his mantle in the field of crafts and design, and his work had an international impact, inspiring the development of Art Nouveau in France as well as the North American arts and crafts movement. Not only the artist, but also those who have seen or are familiar with the artist's works, including myself, had been inspired. When I learned that William was the first artist of the modern era to express his vision using both words and images, it only strengthened my admiration for him. William Morris was an artist who, all things considered, had a significant influence on the art world. That's all. Thank you for listening.